Pardon the interruption, but I'm Pablo Torre. And Tony, I am so honored to work on a holiday with you.
And Tony Kornheiser, wait, Wilbon's not working today? I'd have taken the day off if I knew that. Hi, everything good?
What, you would prefer me and Isola? Who'd you want to stick here with me, Tony, on the B team? Who would your chosen sub be as you just go away and
I love working with you. Pablo, isn't it? Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. Wilbon apparently prioritizes holidays over Game 7s, so I am joined indeed by my great friend, Mr. Pablo Torre. And we begin today with that great ending of Game 6 between Boston and Miami. Don't worry, we'll get to Game 7 in a minute. But there wouldn't be Game 7 without that ending where Derek White got his hands on the Marcus Smart miss and banked in a follow just before the buzzer went off. Pablo, your thoughts on how Game 6 played out and the shot that won it?
Tony, I think this was the funniest sporting event I've ever seen. And I do not say that lightly, but I say it because the way that I am most entertained by sports in general is when there is an ego on the line, when someone's story that they tell themselves about themselves is fragile and broken. And that was the case for both teams in this game. And the fact that it was broken in the Miami Heat's case by Derek White. Okay, Derek White's a fantastic role player. Derek White is also somebody who was clearly, trusted to do the inbounds pass. Always, keep your eye on the inbounds passer. This is a thing you know in basketball. But the point is, Derek White fundamentally benefited from a random bounce. And for that reason, we have a team in the Miami Heat that became a favorite after going up 3-0 as an 8th seed, now going to a Game 7 on the road against a team that suddenly is terrified that somehow they are Goliath and David at the same time in the Boston Celtics. It's incredible what happened. I don't remember anything quite like it. I don't know if you do.
I mean, you know the word fortuitous, I'm sure. Fortuitous is an English major's fancy way of saying blind, dumb luck. And that's what happened in this particular game. If Marcus Smart's shot bounces a different way, doesn't bounce how it bounced and where it bounced, if it bounces 1 foot differently, the game is over and Miami wins. So it's fortuitous for Boston the way it bounced. If Derek White is impeded or jostled by anyone on Miami on his way to the basket, game is over. Miami wins. It's fortuitous that happened. I don't really have much more to say other than, Miami was in position to win. I think you can make the case Miami deserved to win, and Miami did not win. And to me now, this series looks like the Philadelphia series of a couple of weeks ago, where Boston won Game 6 in Philly, came back to Boston where they hadn't played well, got 51 from Jason Tatum, and they move on. That is their MO. They did this last year. They beat Miami in Game 7 to go to the NBA Finals.
And that's why it's fortuitous for me as a person who works with a lot of people, a lot of sweaty people in Miami now, because I've been trying to convince them all, Tony, that Heat culture is fundamentally a psychological trick that you play based off of the result of something as opposed to anything real about your process, pun intended, with the Sixers. And here we have a result that absolutely negates that culture. And here we have tonight a Game 7 in Boston. So let's get to that, because The Athletic reports that Malcolm Brogdon will be back for the Celtics. And on the Heat side of things, all that culture and stuff, Jimmy Butler has vowed that he will be better tonight, adding, quote, "We're going to win," end quote. So, Tony, the arguments for either team to prevail here, which team would you rather be?
Okay. So there is no argument you can make from Miami. You have Jimmy Butler's empty guarantees that are just made of air at the moment. He's been doing
every
it. This
game
is the
he
fourth
guarantees.
game he's doing it. It is impossible to avoid the symbolism of what is going on here. That Boston, a city you know very well, that Boston is coming back from 03. The most famous comeback in American sports history is the Boston Red Sox coming back from 03 and beating the New York Yankees. Boston. That's why people believe in this, because it's happening in Boston. What is the most famous comeback in football? It is the Patriots beating the Falcons in the Super Bowl after being down 28-3, and the owner of the Falcons is dancing on the field. That is the Patriots. That is New England. That is, more to the point, Boston. That's why this is going on, because it's going on in Boston. I mean, I have notes in all of these things that you have a city, and a lot of people resent Boston and resent everything that it stands for. But you have a city where these comebacks are part of the sporting lore. And it's impossible for me not to pick them. It's impossible.
No, Tony, it's also a function of talent, right? I mean, you watch these games and you realize, oh, the Miami Heat shouldn't actually be playing in a Game 7 if everybody's being rational about the hand that they've been dealt. They don't have anywhere near the talent of a Jason Tatum. Jimmy Butler, I watched him score 56 in Miami against the Bucks. It was a command performance. It was incredible. He does not look like that guy right now. Maybe it's because he's tired, doesn't have the legs. Maybe it's because that was an aberration. Whatever the case is, I'm watching Jason Tatum eat his lunch. And so for me, it's not just the fact that they'll probably put Mark Bellhorn, courtside alongside Jason Baratek. It's the fact that the Boston Celtics, as long as they don't do the thing where they slow themselves down to the point where their half-court offense looks incompetent, if they play with pace, if they play with aggression, they're really bad at playing with, even a small lead, but put them behind, put them way out in front, and I believe that they're just a better basketball team, if not for the psychological tricks that they play on themselves.
I agree with that. I mean, before the series began, I thought that Boston would win in 5, and I said Boston was winning 5 because they're the better team. Then when Miami got to the point where they were up 3-0, and I figured, okay, Game 6, they're going to win Game 6. So I have been completely wrong on this, but it is just unavoidable that this is Boston and an 0-3 comeback, and there's precedent for this. There's no other city that you would say that. It's different. We'll move on.
Yeah.
Let's go to fabulously speculative football stories for 800, please. For some reason, Jimmy Garoppolo signed a waiver allowing the Raiders to effectively cut him and never pay him if his foot problem persists, the foot that just underwent surgery. That would leave the Raiders without a brand-name quarterback. Pablo, do you think this circumstance, especially since the coach of the Raiders now, Josh McDaniels, is his old offensive coordinator, could tempt Tom Brady into a comeback?
Yeah, we're doing a little what's the word in the A block today, Tony, because I don't think tempted is strong enough to describe how Tom Brady feels about this scheme, which he has alleged to have tried when he tried to become a minority owner of the Dolphins and the yacht, and allegedly the Brian Flores thing came out of that. So look, he has tried this before to the point where the Las Vegas Review-Journal is reporting that owners may demand that he actually be contractually fully retired in order for them to vote him in as a minority owner. So obvious is the angle that Tom Brady is playing here. And the larger question, which is so funny to me with this, is that the Raiders, other than maybe Tom Brady coming in to save them, what's the plan that they have? Jimmy Garoppolo and Brian Hoyer and what? None of this is really adding up as a strategy for a football team that actually wants to contend.
So I love this story. I love it even more than Aaron Rodgers entering the dungeon of darkness. I had read that Brady wanted to buy into the Raiders, but I didn't know that he wanted to buy in like Connie Mack, where he would own the team and be the quarterback on the team. And so now I understand, as you understand, that this is not going to be legal. But he can own the team next year and he can be the quarterback this year, unless you think, and thank you for mentioning Brian Hoyer, or Aiden O'Connell from Purdue, or Chase Garbers from Cal is better. I go on this show and say what I'm going to say a lot, this same thing. I look at athletes who are trying to play deep into their 40s, early 40s, mid 40s, something like that, and I go, not everybody is Tom Brady. And what I mean by that is that Tom Brady is a physical freak. I mean, the average person, even a great athlete, can't do it. They can't go till they're 45. But you know who is Tom Brady? Tom Brady is Tom Brady. So if Tom Brady thinks he can do this, and last year he had at least 2 fabulous comebacks, in the fourth quarter, then I'd like to see it, wouldn't you?
Tony, well, that's the thing. I think Tom Brady may only technically be Tom Brady at this point. He got rid of the ball faster than every other quarterback in the NFL because he doesn't want to get hurt anymore. You mentioned these games from his past in the earlier segment that we did. That guy doesn't want to get hit anymore, Tony. That guy in Las Vegas now, the punishment's going to have to, he's going to have to absorb that. I think he doesn't want to absorb it. How can he absorb it? I think that's the push and pull. He wants to be Tom Brady. He is Tom Brady, but he's also kind of not.
But if he did it, and I'm glad we can do this story because Wilbon would have said, we're not doing this story. But I'm glad we can do it. If he did it and he had some success, Belichick's head would explode.
Oh,
Let's take a break.
Oh, I want this now.
Coming up,
yeah, good point.
The Stars are once down 3-0, but can push the Golden Knights to a Game 7 tonight. Will they?
And Tony watched the Indy 500 yesterday, so now we got to talk about it, apparently. And I will have thoughts also after the break. Maybe a thought, singular, but
I didn't watch all of it because it's on for like 7 hours. I tuned in at the end and I watched the end, but yes, and I watch all the time, as I will explain. I watch
milk, right? This is the milk one? One with the milk? There's like a milk involved?
The milk. That's the one with the milk, where you win, you drink the milk.
Yeah.
This is...
Trying to find out what's cracking with the Commoners.
Milk
see what's first here and read it. Oh, this is long. Should the Stars be excited about the return of Captain Jamie Benn tonight, or fear that it could disrupt what's been working?
Yeah, the vibes around Jamie Benn's return in this series, Tony, are bad. I believe that's a scientific term. The vibes are bad because the guy, I mean, look, to just recap what happened, right? 2 minutes in, he gets tossed from the game. He's their captain. He's played 1,000 zillion games, and thereafter, the game collapses, they pull their goalie, everything goes terribly. And after that, he says, I was unfortunate that my stick was the landing point on that guy's face. So he is a liar. He got suspended for 2 games. They have won 2 games without him, but they've used him as this rallying cry. And if you're going to disrupt the little run they've had because this guy who did something terrible has become the Gipper for you, no, I don't like this. I fear what happens to the mojo of a team that is benefiting from the bottom line to benefit one of their top guys.
That's interesting. I completely disagree. He's their captain. Presumably, he's the leader on their team. I don't see how it would be disruptive. He's the second leading scorer over the course of the season.
He is.
I think they have a real chance. They're back in Dallas in Game 6, so I think they have a real chance, and I think he will help them. But beyond that, look at what we've had in the NHL and the NBA playoffs. We were looking at 4 sweeps. We got 2, and now we're counting on miracles in the other 2. Basketball's 0-150. Hockey is 4-201. I'm rooting for a Game 7. I'm rooting for Dallas. I'm rooting for Game 7. I assume you are, too. I don't know how you couldn't be rooting for that.
Yeah, more Game 7s in general.
Well, how will you, Pablo, remember this Indy 500? I'm going to take this one. You didn't even watch it.
Please.
I know
Thank
that.
you.
The Indianapolis 500 for me is something that I try to watch every single year. It is appointment viewing for me. I think it's a fabulous television show to begin with. But more than that, I think it is part of Americana in sports. I would say that the Indy 500, the Kentucky Derby, the Daytona 500, a heavyweight championship match, the Final Four. These are things that I think if you're a sports fan, you should watch, even if it's not your sport. For example, I don't care all that much about soccer, but I will watch the World Cup final. So I don't watch all of the Indy 500. It goes on for a long time. I got lucky enough, I tuned in, Pablo, when there were, I think, 12 or 15 laps to go. And I said, okay, this is going to be great. It's going to be a half hour. I'm going to get everything that I need out of it. Because I'm a sports writer, right? I mean, you're a sports writer because you like all sports, not just because you want to watch the NBA or the NFL. You like all sports.
Yes, you're a generalist.
But every time they went for a restart, because there'd been an accident, there'd be another crash in 20 seconds. And so the laps eroded, and they only had a 1-lap race. They give it the green flag. There's a 1-lap race. A guy from second or third jumps up to the front and wins 1 lap. It's terrible. It's just not satisfying. It was like a NASCAR, a stock car race. I didn't like it.
No, Tony, I want to say this delicately as a student of history, and I consider you a historian. the word Americana is a synonym for old stuff. You just named a bunch of old stuff. I know, but I'm not. I mean, technically, I'm 37. I'm relatively ancient compared to the people probably sending you the mail. But to me, you sell this by selling the fact that a tire flew off. I saw the clip with the tire. A tire flew off. Thankfully, no one got hurt, but it dented a car, like in a parking lot. The guy who won snuck through a hole in a fence and got, like, essentially mobbed trying to crowd surf. Like, yeah, that stuff I'm into, but you just had a bunch of stuff that, in my mind, I'm like, oh, this is like black and white. And there's like,
Let me explain to people why you're killing the indie. You grew up in New York City, you never had a license. You went to school in Boston, you never had a license. You're not a car person. Not a car person. Manifest destiny in America is the car. Enough email. Let's take one last break. Still to come, the A's are stinking on an historic level.
And the Bucks have a new coach. Is he a good fit for that job? I got a license, by the way.
I will say, well, that's good to
27.
know. Manifest destiny didn't start out with cars. It was like covered wagons. And then it was the train. Yeah. But it's cars. If you grow up on Long Island, it's cars. And I'm old.
Yeah.
I give you that.
Right. Yeah, manifest destiny. That is not how I thought that.
Happy time, people. Happy belated 85th birthday on Sunday, Jerry West. Mr. Clutch. West has led the longest, greatest career in the history of basketball. He was an All-American at West Virginia 65 years ago. He was on the 1960 gold medal U.S. Olympic basketball team. He won a championship with the Lakers where he played for 14 years and was an all-star 14 times. West was so great as a player that it is his silhouette on the NBA logo. West coached the Lakers for 3 years and down the road decided Pat Riley would be a better fit. Overall, West won 8 championships as an executive with the Lakers and the Warriors. How's that, Pablo?
Tony, the first sentence you led with there, that no one has had a better career in basketball, is true because of the last sentence you said. He built the Showtime Lakers. He built the Kobe and Shaq Lakers. He went to Memphis, was executive of the year there. And then he was an executive with the Warriors as they built their dynasty. The guy has had a life in basketball as an exec that is unparalleled before you get to the basketball part of it. And yeah, he was pretty damn good at that, too.
Happy anniversary, Pacers and Magic. On this day 28 years ago, these teams engaged in arguably the most exciting 13 seconds in playoff history. With 13.3 seconds left in Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals, Orlando's Brian Shaw hit a three, giving Orlando a 90-89 lead. On the ensuing Pacers possession, Reggie Miller hit a three, making it 92-90 Indiana with 6 seconds left. With 1.3 seconds left, Penny Hardaway hit a three, putting the Magic back up 93-92, and then Indiana inbounded to Rick Smits, who pump faked to get Tree Rollins in the air and knocked down the game winner.
And this is why Reggie Miller is somebody who haunts my own childhood memories, because the round before that, Tony, the round before that was 8 points in 9 seconds for Mr. Miller against the Knicks. And so the reality is that guy in 2 consecutive rounds was involved with the best 9 seconds and the best 13 seconds in basketball playoff history.
Happy trails to an 11th straight game for the Oakland A's. The Astros hit 7 home runs yesterday, beat Oakland 10-1, sweeping the series and handing the A's their 11th consecutive loss. The A's are now 10-45. It's the worst record in baseball. They're unlikely to get better because next up is Atlanta. 10-45 record is the worst start of any team in the modern era. Oakland's run differential is minus 199. They have scored 3 runs or less in their last 11 games. They're on pace, hold it, to finish 29-133. They have the lowest payroll in baseball and the lowest attendance. They should pack up and move to Las Vegas today. Right now. Start the car right now.
And the reason why is because this pitch comm thing they use in baseball now, where the pitcher's communicating with the catcher, they've had to mute it, Tony, because when they use it, the whole building is so silent that the hitter can hear, which feels like a problem on every possible level.
They were a great, great franchise. It's over there now. One omission, Nick Nurse reportedly agreed to become the next head coach of your 76ers. Pablo, do you like that?
Oh, I like this a lot, Tony. I like this because that was the guy who figured out better than anybody else how to stop Joel Embiid when he was with the Raptors winning a title. How he uses Joel Embiid is the mandate for that man and his destiny.
Guys who win championships are fired within 2 years. It's unbelievable. Let's go to the big finish. The Bucks, looking for a coach, reportedly hired Raptors assistant Adrian Griffin as their new head coach. Is that a good fit?
I've heard good things about him, but for his sake, I hope so, because there are a lot of big names, those fired coaches you just mentioned, and he got chosen instead of all those guys. But Mike Soroka, gets his first start for the Braves tonight since 2020. Your thoughts?
He was a terrific pitcher as a rookie. Atlanta grows terrific young pitchers. He's been out for a while, but he's got a soft spot to land. They're playing Oakland, I believe. The NBA is reportedly investigating whether referee Eric Lewis had a burner account on Twitter. Is that significant?
It's significant because the burner account went away as soon as people reported on it, which feels like the telltale sign that you're running a burner account. But Novak Djokovic won his first-round French Open match in straight sets. Are you impressed?
No, I'm not impressed with a first-round match going in straight sets. I'm impressed with him. He's a great, great player. I'm not crazy about him, but he's a great player. Last one, Yankee starter Domingo Germán returns from suspension tonight. What are your expectations?
The same as my 3-year-old daughter's, which is to have less sticky stuff on her hands all of the time. He got suspended for the sticky stuff. Violet also struggling with the sticky stuff over this weekend.
Fantastic. You brought your daughter into the show. Love it. We're out of time. Try and do better the next time. I'm Tony Kornheiser.
And I'm Pablo Torre. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe at www.pablo.show. Production values. And now, your SportsCenter.
That's a cheap, dumb sign. Get a better sign.
No, it's not.
All right, Pablo. What would be the better story? The Celtics completing the comeback from 0-3 or the Heat winning Game 7 on the road?
So I love this question because I don't root for either of these teams. And I get to laugh and laugh and laugh because either outcome is amazing. And the reason it is because the Heat started off as a David, became a Goliath, went up 3-0. The Celtics started off as Goliath, became a David. And now they're back, and now they have a Game 7. And I have to give the slightest of edges to the Boston Celtics winning this thing and becoming the first team to ever come back from 0-3 in NBA playoff history. But either way, Tony, it's so great that I can just laugh at the misery of every terrified person actually rooting for these teams.
So if you ask me as a sports columnist, where would I be? Sports columnists almost always go to losing locker rooms. The losing locker room is a better place to write a column. And it really wouldn't matter which team lost, although it would be better, I think, if Miami lost because they would have blown the 3-0 lead. But if you ask me which is the better story in an overall sense, it is Boston winning because of the affiliation of the city of Boston with these sorts of comebacks.
Keeps on happening.
The Yankees losing to the Red Sox is the biggest story of its kind ever. The biggest football comeback ever is the Patriots coming back down 28-3, beating the Falcons in the Super Bowl. This would be the trifecta for Boston. If the Celtics broke an 0-150 schneid, and they won this thing after being down 3-0. So I think because it's Boston, and because there's a history there, the symbolism makes that, to me, the greater story.
Yeah, I suppose so. That's a painful memory for me, but that is it. We're done. Back to you and I guess Tim Wakefield sitting courtside tonight.